Hi, g'day there, where are you going?
Hello.
You're right,
How you doing? Good to see you.
I'm good, yeah, very good, very good. Go. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Sydney, but unfortunately it's also a very sad day. Today I say goodbye to the 180SX. If you guys have seen this car before, you might have seen it on my social media or on video. It's been a really, really great car. It's registered, I drive it to some track events and I also tow it to some track events, and I've had it for the last 6 years and it's been a really great car to drive. So I thought I might throw this video together based on the modifications I've done to the 180SX, why I think it's such a great car to drive at track events, and also a bit of a montage of videos that will remind not only myself but also show you guys how much fun I've actually had in this car over the last couple of years. So for those of you who might not have seen the car before, this is a 95 180SX and it's actually had a full Type X kit put on it. The wheels didn't get sold with the car. I'm keeping them for the S14 for next year. I'm gonna rip them off and I'm gonna do a quick rundown video of the mods and everything that I got in the car. Just to break it down, first of all, look, we've got the Origin guards on there. They're 55mm guards. I put them on a couple of years ago because I needed to put bigger wheels on there. Obviously you make the car fit the wheels. The car already had a Type X kit on it. I did install the wing, installed the roof wing. Basically everything in the interior is still standard. It's completely converted from a Type X with some Defi gauges on the dash. The Apexi Power FC there with the hand controller. Type X seats, I actually installed those because it came with some pretty worn out bride seats. You can see it's a little bit mismatched. When I had the car painted, the guards weren't really painted very well to the doors or front bumper or the bonnet. Came with a front lip, pretty much it for the external part of it. So what we'll do is we'll get this on the hoist and we'll show you underneath the car, and I'll show you the lock kit and everything that makes this car a fun car to drive on track. All right guys, 180 is on the hoist. We're gonna do a quick once over, change the wheels as you can see, taking the old wheels off and putting the RPF one back on. So to start at the front, we've got the Driftworks lower control arms, cast drums and Geomaster knuckles, and the white line sway bars as you can see in the front, as well as aftermarket coilovers. Pretty simple setup. It drives really well. They're not too aggressive. And a really cool thing is the steering rack spaces that I have in the steering rack here, that pushes the steering rack forward around 10mm, and these are from Part Shop Max. As well as we run the Part Shop Max offset rack spaces. Now, a lot of people don't like running these rack spaces. However, the Part Shop Max ones do have a huge bolt that hold them in there and they're quite strong. So they're relatively safe to use and I have never run into any issues with them. And running that and the offset rack spaces, they come extremely close to your bolt here, which is a good thing though, because as you can see here, the tie rod is completely straight on full lock, which means no bind. So instead of completely modifying the crossmember bar, I've put in the steering rack bushes, which also solid mounts this, so it makes it a much simpler process, as well as if you do need to reverse it at any point, you can just remove them and put standard bushes back in. We also have a upgraded front steering shaft bush. This really improves the driving feel that you get through the steering shaft when you're going full lock or just turning in little movements. Standard, these have a rubber bush. Removing that gives you much better driving feel through the steering shaft and stops that flex that you get from having a standard rubber bush. Moving away back here, we've got the R34 GTST gearbox. Now this is a cut and shut bell housing. There are a lot of options on the market. However, I find that the cut and shuts personally work better rather than putting an adapter plate in. Behind that, we've got a one-piece tail shaft that connects up to a 4:11 ratio R200 diff. This diff has an upgraded center in it, It's running a Nismo two-way center, which makes it pretty aggressive for the track and a little bit aggressive for the street, but it's not too bad. Now we've rebuilt the drive shafts. They are actually out of an R33, and these came out with a 5 bolts in the R33 and early models in the R200 series and the 180s. Cusco upper and lower arms here, both in camber and tow. Still running standard lower control arms and traction arms. And as you can see, it also has a matching white line sway bar in the rear. On the subframe, we've replaced the standard bushers and put in solid GK Tech bushers. It gives it a lot better driving feel when you're drifting, as well as solid bushers here on the diff, which also gives you a much better driving feel, especially when you're dropping the clutch a lot. We have retained the standard gearbox mount here, which is rubber, as well as the engine mounts, which is also rubber. So solid mounting the rear here doesn't make it too uncomfortable to drive on the street, and you can't really feel it that much. I do highly recommend leaving soft mounts here and on your engine, especially with the SR20s, because they do have a lot of pickup issues, and under heavy vibration, they tend to snap. Under here, obviously you can see this is the SR20 upgraded sump. This is a Greddy copy sump, and this holds around 6 litres of oil. Really important to put more oil in these SR20s as they do starve. They have quite a small sump factory. As you can see, we have the go-to oil cooler and intercooler, nothing too crazy. And that's about it for the underside of the car. Now, brakes wise, in the rear, we're running a GTS-T rear caliper. And in the front, we're running a Nissan S15 rear caliper. Also along the side here, we've got a HFM adapter from GK Tech. That allows you to put a 326mm disc here with an S15 caliper, and we're also running GK Tech spacers here at the front to space the wheels out away from the coilovers. Last but not least, the SR20. Now recently we had to put a brand new motor in this because at glory days, we actually blew the engine. It started knocking again. We bearing slapped the engine in 2020. It lasted 2 years, thankfully. Unfortunately, it gave way again. The motor's sitting right there on the floor. It needs a really good rebuild now. But we have a brand new motor here. I've got 256 Tomei cams in it, cam gears, and it's running a 3076 turbo on the side of it with an aftermarket external gate. It's running aftermarket larger size injectors and an aftermarket fuel pressure regulator. Not a lot to this system, runs very well. It's making around 260 kilowatt, and it's been tuned by Red Sun Motorsport. So Matty did really well with this. It's only running 14 PSI as well. So it's very impressive for a little motor on little boosts. Obviously quite a large turbo. If I was to do this again, I would change that turbo probably to a 28 series, maybe like a 2871 or a G25 550 or something a little bit smaller. I think the 30 series turbo is a little bit too big for this and a little bit laggy. Comes on around 5.5 grand full boost, which is quite hard sometimes when you're trying to keep up with people, especially with a 4.1 diff. If you have a 4.6 diff in it, it's not too bad, but this has got a 4.1 in it now. And look, that's pretty much it for the engine bay. Quick run through on the car. Hope you enjoyed it. Let's jump into the videos and I'll show you guys how much fun this car is to drive.